Hello, everyone. My name is Maureen McDowell, and I'm the founder and executive director of Keep St. Pete Lit. We are a literary arts organization based in St. Petersburg, Florida. And this is episode 38 of Typewriter Talks, where we get inside the brains and minds of our local writing community. And today we have Danielle Clark. She is a business professor, a blogger, a lifestyle coach, and she's working on a memoir, and her blog is inspired by her memoir. Did I get that right, Danielle?
Yes, you
Yeah,
did. Thank
good.
you for that introduction.
Cool. So tell us what you're working on right now.
Okay. Well, I have my weekly blog, and so that's always like me looking for the ideas, looking for the learning nuggets, me getting it out every Friday. So that keeps me busy. In addition to that writing project, I have just completed my memoir, and I'm fine tuning it. I know, yay!
Hey.
I am fine tuning it. It's in the copywriter's hands, and so I'm patiently, not so patiently, waiting for it back. I hope to see it back in late March, and we'll just kind of keep going back and forth and focusing on the nitty gritty so we can get it out into the world.
So you told me before we started recording that your blog is inspired by your memoir, correct?
Yeah. So my memoir is about my what I refer to as a dark night of the soul experience. This really deep spiritual awakening that was triggered by the loss of a job. And throughout that experience, I learned to not take myself and life so seriously
Yeah.
and to break some really unhealthy judgment patterns that I was giving myself and that I was giving others. And so late last year, as I started to finish up my memoir, I said, I need to keep this alive. I need to help myself and others remember not to judge. So, yes, the blog is inspired by what I learned through the healing and writing process of my memoir. And it's all centered around opening up your intuition, not taking life too seriously, and just learning day-to-day baby steps, and not self-criticizing and not spewing black and white negative comments to others, whether it's verbally or in our heads.
Yeah, we tend to get very, very like it's this or this, and there's no gray area. But like if you look at the wheel of emotions, there's so many emotions you can have, and you can have simultaneous emotions where you may feel anger, but also pleasure, and also frustration, but we have such this black and white way that we think we have to be. So I love that you're kind of breaking that and inspiring people to do that. That's wonderful.
Thank
Do
you.
you see, once the memoir is done, do you see it becoming a series, like having more than one book? Is your writing taking like a different form as the memoir is finishing? What do you think about all that?
What a great question. I am thinking about that, and it's so funny that I just entered that stage where I'm like, okay, like what
What's next?
next,
Yeah.
right? What next? I don't quite know. So here's where I'm at. One, I've all of a sudden started to get really dreamy about the idea of a nonfiction book that takes some of the juiciness of the memoir and can really run with it in an imaginative way, in a way that people would need that. So, and I've started playing with the ideas of characters that would be loosely based on my journey or pieces of me and others. Definitely more in my younger years. But I've also seen a self-help side of my memoir creeping out. My memoir is not self-help intentionally. I wanted the raw story out there, and I wanted people to take what they needed from it. But now, throughout the writing process, I've created and identified frameworks that can help in the healing process of trauma and stopping these judgment patterns. So that might be an area too. So I'm just happy right now with the options. I'm okay with a brief pause to kind of see where things go, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about like Julia Cameron with her book, The Artist's Way, she has like note cards that come out of it. And then there's, some people do playing card decks, and then they have like the affirmations that you draw every day. They have like the monthly calendar, the calendar where you read a new thing for every day. That is I do that with 7 Habits of the Highly Effective Person, Stephen Covey. I have like the daily meditations for that. And there's so many avenues that you can take something like that. And I think it's important to realize, because, we don't want to think of our writing as something that we need to necessarily monetize, but it is. Or you have to pay your bills. I mean, this is a reality. So if you find something that's like kind of a gateway to you having a platform, you could be a speaker, speaking to women's groups or anyone. If you're, I don't know if your audience is specifically women or it's just anyone. But there's so many things that you can do that it isn't just the traditional route as a writer.
Absolutely. I love everything you said. Yes, my blog, the affirmations and the journaling prompts come directly from my experience, where my healing was to use affirmations and writing, and now I'm delivering those weekly to an audience, and I'm delivering it to them for so many reasons. One, because it's a gift, and it gives me joy to know that others can benefit from my work. And yes, I'm also putting it out there because I want to heighten the relationship. I am a life coach. I am a spiritual teacher. And if someone connects with my writing and they want to learn more, yes, reach out to me. There's nothing to feel bad about, right? The right people will connect with me. And yes, my blog in particular has really brought some new people to me, or people who didn't view me as a life coach, even though they knew I was a life coach. They couldn't quite wrap their head around, well, what do I do and what does my voice sound like? Now they understand that, right? And so I would say yes. And same thing, I do a lot of speaking, and when people ask who I am, it's never just a writer. It's how you introduced me. I'm a business professor. I'm a life coach. I'm a writer, and they all connect to my message of helping people break judgment habits. But it's not just one avenue.
Yeah, and I think that is it's important to realize, like before I started Keep St. Pete Lit, I've mentioned this before, I was trying to think about a way to use my poetry to help people. And I actually went to the National Speakers Association and did their speaker academy, and was going to use my books as like a tool for the public speaking. But then Keep St. Pete Lit reared its head and decided, look, this is what you need to do. So that kind of went on the back burner, but all those tools helped when I do need to get up in front of a crowd and do public speaking. And the poetry still, like I was talking to a friend recently, like I could have been touring the country right now as a speaker, how life just like takes you where you never know it's going to go. But I think that's important for writers to understand that, you can go the traditional route, but there's all these different avenues that you could take with your writing that isn't necessarily something you're going to learn in an MFA program. So
absolutely. And writing coaching, I'm going to be popping into a friend's business development seminar for small female entrepreneurs in a few weeks. And I'm popping in to teach a seminar on how to write heart-centered copy, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so now here I am stepping in as a writing coach, right? And so that's another avenue where I'm putting myself out there. And one mistake I find a lot of people make, it doesn't matter what role you're in, is people always feel like you have to be the best before you offer a service. I am not the best, not at all. but these are newer entrepreneurs, and I have some experience, and some is better than the none and little they have. So I am going to go in and I'm going to pass down my knowledge, right? And so I hope those listening right now, don't wait until you have it all. You don't need the MFA, or you don't need the 500 credentials. Just find an audience that could benefit you. And most of the time, it's the things we're really good at
Yeah.
that we tell ourselves we're not good at because it comes easy to us. But just because it's easy doesn't mean it's not a gift that others can benefit from.
I love that. I mean, I tell people I started Keep St. Pete Lit with absolutely no nonprofit knowledge. Like, I didn't come from money. I didn't have money. I was a poet and a mother. And I just saw like a void in my community where my needs were not getting met as a reader and writer. And the learning curve has been huge, but I would not have done it any other way. Like, I'm glad that we didn't start with money, because then we partnered with existing organizations, and we kept it where we were just a pop-up. And, when this pandemic hit, I really realized that that model was sustainable, because I don't have to worry about rent. I don't have this huge pool of employees that I'm laying off. They're contracted with us depending on what work we have. There's just a lot of different ways that this very kind of flexible and nimble model, which was a necessity. It was like the punk rock way of doing it, because I didn't have capital, actually helped us sustain, manage a pandemic. So, you don't always have to be like the biggest and the brightest. And another thing I always I like slow and steady, because then you make mistakes in private. Like, if you're doing this huge, flashy,
Yes.
I'm the biggest thing ever, and you have to come and see this amazing, and then you're making mistakes in front of all these people. Like, pilot something, try it out for a while, then you can let go what doesn't work, and then have a slow burn to grow. And so all of those, you spoke of intuition, all of those intuitive ways of doing things actually really worked to grow this organization that's getting bigger and bigger every year. But it's just been that slow and steady climb. So I'm glad you brought that up, that you don't always have to be perfect to start something. They say that about writing, like,
Absolutely.
just write, So what do you do for inspiration? Like, if you get, because you're doing a lot of things, like what gets you inspired?
What a great question. What inspires me? I'm a hodgepodge. It really depends. I sometimes I'll go to Oracle cards. There's all sorts of decks out there, and I'll just shuffle them and pull a card and see, what it's telling me. Nature. It sounds so obvious, and I'm sure everyone's heard it 1,000 times, but you might not be doing it or doing it right. I find that I am my most creative self when I'm in nature, without the headphones on, without texting and walking at the same time, like when I'm really taking nature in. And then just time alone, and then of course this, right, listening to other podcasts and writers. And I will say social media inspires me, if I don't overdo it, right? So I just need to be good about disciplining myself, but a quick scroll or a quick watch or a quick interaction gets me excited. But it's finding that healthy balance of loving and appreciating what others are creating, and then taking that and doing my own creative work, not getting so sucked into their creative work. Yeah.
That right there. Say that again. I got goosebumps. Say what you just said again.
Enjoying and appreciating what others are creating, but not getting too sucked up into their creations, pulling back and making sure that you're creating your own.
That is such good advice. As soon as I get off this interview, I am going and going deep and being quiet. Because we had Localtopia this weekend, which was like 20,000 people after being quiet for a year. And I was like, thank God I was running the booth with my mom, because I'm losing it. I had a hat on, sunglasses, mask, I was hidden, but it was still whoa. So it's time to be quiet and reflect and get back on my own frequency, and
Yes.
And with this culture that's like 24-hour news cycle and everyone has something to share, like you can get so caught up in it, and then you start comparing yourself, and then you lose heart, or you know, and it's not, creating is different than consuming. In the social media, we're consuming, and then you have to get off it, or, you know, and then to be creative. And I think that's important to realize the difference. So thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. What I like to do, whether I'm reading or going through social media, I like to task myself with coming up with a to-do from whatever I'm doing, because then it puts it more on me. So if I'm going to go on Instagram, I'm going to look for a quote I like, and I'm going to journal prompt off it.
Oh,
or
wow.
I'm going to read this chapter of this book, and then I'm going to put a to-do list for me as a result of what I learned. And that can be an action forward way of consuming, but still making sure that you're living your own life and not just always stepping into somebody else's world.
I love that idea. That's a really good idea. Like you look at it as kind of a gateway to your own creativity.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what's nice also about like Instagram stories. Like I'm always consciously sharing stuff that I think maybe can inspire other people, but I don't just put something up for shock value, or like, it has to feel intuitive to me. And some days I won't do anything, and other days there'll be 20 things, because I'll just be like in that space. So what would you say, what would you tell your younger writer self? I love asking this question.
What a great one. Keep writing, and nothing is lost. So I have a story. When I was young, maybe 7 or 8, I wrote this like princess castle troll story that I fell in love with, and I finished it beginning to end, and I somehow lost it. And because I lost it, I lost writing for decades, creative writing. I found research in this very scholarly type of writing, but creative writing, for decades, I lost it. And so my advice, just because your computer crashes and you lose a poem, just because you can't find the notes you took from that conference, does not give you permission to stop writing. It don't, just move forward and know that that piece you wrote that you can't find, it's still in your heart somewhere, and it lives on, and move forward. Whatever you do, keep writing.
What kind of books what writers do you like? What books are you reading right now?
What books am I reading right now? I'm reading I'm on Audible with Ready Player 2. And I'm on Audible because I just love Will Wheaton's voice.
Oh, is he the one who does
so
it?
I'm just,
that's awesome.
He is, and I'm just in love. So I'm slowly enjoying him, which is quite fun. And I'm actually reading now, I think it's called Small Fry, and that's by Steve Jobs' daughter, Lisa. And that's a memoir, a very interesting memoir about her experience with her dad, who is very removed from her life from a while. Typically memoir, although if it's something that's got the good reviews, or something that a special someone recommends, I'll pick up almost anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are two good. I read Ready Player One. I think I'm gonna have to read Ready Player Two. I saw the movie. I could see that would be such a good escape.
Oh, you need to.
Yeah, just such. Oh, Will Wheaton,
yes.
Star Trek. I love Star Trek. Oh, that's so cool. I know.
So get it on Audible. Yes, go for a walk. Enjoy him on Audible.
Oh, how lovely. So let me ask one more question, and then we can hear some of your work.
Sure.
What would be your holy grail piece of writing advice?
I'd say the holy grail writing advice is trust your intuition. Regardless of what the how-to writing books tell you to do it, you know what's best for you. I read books that told me, don't have people read the first draft until the end, and don't bring in a professional until the end. And that's not how I roll. I'm an extrovert. I love, the back and forth of critical feedback. And I've had tons and tons of eyes and professionals on my work the last 3 years as I've moved it towards this stage. And if I was to listen to the advice, I would have been disengaged, because I like working with a team. And so I really encourage people. It is wise. You want to know what the research says. You want to know what the best of the best advise you to do, and take that and put that in a bank of possibilities, but then check in with your intuition and say, what is best for me, and go with that.
I like that a lot. And that's interesting, because I'm more of an introvert, and the idea of workshopping my work with a big group of people is like, oh my God. So it's like the opposite of that. You probably thrive in like an MFA kind of feedback situation. And to me, it was like, that sounds like hell. I want like my one reader, so it's that. I'm glad, because I was just discussing the MFA programs with a friend of mine, and how it's different. Everybody wants different things, and you need to follow your intuition. And my path as a writer and a poet is very different than other people's, because I needed to go this certain route. And I think that's a very important to like discern, what's best for you. And if you're not doing what everyone else is doing, but what you're doing is right for you, it doesn't mean that it's the wrong path. It might not make sense now, but like, it might make sense in 5 years. You'll go, oh, that's why I did all this way. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And don't let the MFA thing scare you. I don't have an MFA. And for a while, I just got stuck on titles, right?
Yeah.
But meanwhile, I had written my whole life. I mean, yes, in a business environment, and yes, more from a scholarly standpoint, but writing is writing, and we don't need a credential to tell us that we're ready. Whoever's listening, you can do this with or without an MFA, with or without anything. The amount of free resources out there for you to self-teach yourself, it's just it's possible. So move forward.
I love that. So let's hear some of your writing.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, let me pull it up. Since we talked about the blog so much, I'm just going to read 2 of my blog posts for our listeners. And if they're interested, they can subscribe at drdanielleclark.com. So let's pull this up here. So the first one, it's going to be, I listened to my true self. I posted this a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Every morning, I aim to walk 3 miles before I do any computer work. I like walking. I really do. But sometimes keeping active feels like a chore. Lately, the conversation in my head goes something like this. The other Danielle, you have tons of work to do. Go for a walk later. The true Danielle, get that blood moving. Take in nature, clear your mind. If you wait, you won't go. The other Danielle, what's the point of going for a walk? You'll need to do more than that if you want to get rid of the extra COVID pounds. The true Danielle, get your butt outside. You're walking to reconnect with yourself and the universe. Stay healthy. This is where your best ideas come from. And so what if you have a few extra pounds? Well, last week I woke up and it was pouring. I'm sure it's easy to imagine how my 2 sides handled this conversation. The other Danielle, it's raining. Here's your excuse. You don't have to walk today. Whoop, whoop. The true Danielle, you made a commitment to yourself. You're not going to melt. Since when do you need excuses? The other Danielle, but the walk will be so boring. I can't even track my steps or listen to my Audible because my phone is on the fritz and it can't get wet. The true Danielle, quit your whining. As tempting as the arguments were from the other Danielle, I listened to my truth-telling, no bullcrap self. I laced up my sneakers, left my phone on my desk, and braved the weather. 10 minutes into my walk, I chuckled to myself. I was having the time of my life. Each droplet of water on my skin made me feel alive. The streets weren't filled with walkers or cars, and so I got a beautiful, solitary, it's just me and the world experience. All I could hear were the birds chirping and the squirrels nibbling away at their acorns. And best of all, I didn't break a promise to myself. After I showered and powered up the laptop, I produced some of my best work of the week. How can you tune into your true self instead of the other self trying to derail you?
I love it.
And then after that, thank you. After that, I give an affirmation and a writing prompt focused on how can we listen to our true selves. And I'll give you one more. This one's near and dear to my heart. This is, here's why you shouldn't regret the past. The other night in bed with my husband, Ron, I said, did you see that thing your brother posted? I really liked it. It asked, if you could go back in time to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give yourself in 3 words? Ron responded, no, I didn't see it. What would you say? I replied, stop smoking now. You? Ron stated, just enjoy it. He followed his 3 words with this. You know, I wouldn't want to change a single thing, Danielle. Everything connects. Everything has gotten me to where I am today. If I change one thing, you change it all. His words were profound and got me thinking differently about my smoker's remorse. What would have happened if I stopped smoking earlier, or perhaps never started in the first place? While the obvious benefits would be a lower risk of cancer and fewer dental problems, I realized that if I had chosen to stop smoking, I may never have fallen in love with my husband. When I met Ron, I was 19 years young. I was instantly attracted to him. His tall, lean frame, his auburn hair, and the fact that he smoked, they were sexy as hell. As a smoker, I loved men who smoked, and most non-smokers did not want to date a girl like me. If I had quit smoking, perhaps Ron wouldn't have been so sexy to me. Perhaps I wouldn't have wanted to date a smoker because he may have triggered me. And maybe Ron only wanted to date a smoker. And I wouldn't have gained as much strong empathy for addicts. Well, I've experimented with my fair share of drugs and alcohol. I never got addicted. Thank you, God. But I know what addiction feels like due to smoking. I started when I was 13 years old, and the habit quickly spiraled to the point where I couldn't hold a conversation, focus, or function without the inhale of a Marlboro Red. Because I know what addiction feels like, I've found success coaching and supporting those with addictive personalities. If I never smoked for so many years and never tried to quit so many times, perhaps I wouldn't have the enormous amount of empathy that I do now for addicts of all kinds, food, sex, drugs. And if I didn't smoke, maybe I wouldn't have been able to have my son, Aaron. After I got pregnant with our son, I was determined to quit smoking. But after I had him, it was all too typical. It was a typical cycle of stop, start, stop, start. And Ron kept smoking, which didn't make the stopping part stick. We'd fight and it'd get ugly. I'd beg him to quit, to help me quit. But one night during a nasty argument, we both got so mad with each other, my arms flailing and Ron going into silent mode, that we swore we'd stop to avoid the fights, to avoid getting divorced, to ensure I got to be a mom to Aaron for the rest of my life. And we did. We quit together without the opportunity to reach a place of compromise and synergy with Ron. We might never have quit for good, and perhaps I might never have been the mom I am today. While there are still pieces of me that wished I never smoked, I don't regret it. I forgive myself for the experience. I'm thankful for the learning and growth it gave me, and I accept the lightness and the darkness of what is.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you. I love
Thank you for letting me share.
I love that you shared about your love story because of cigarettes. And it's just, I was like, how?
I know, isn't that?
Sitting here going like, how does she explain that smoking's okay? Like on my brain, but it was good because you got me
Of
hooked.
course.
Got me hooked. I was like, how is she gonna pull this off? But it totally, and then how you empathize with addicts, like, especially as a life coach, like, how would you, that, you have to kind of go through hardships to be able to empathize with other people. Those people that have just had this really easy life, like I'm happy for you. But those of us that haven't, it helps to empathize and want to, help other people feel better. So thank you, Danielle. That was lovely. I was really like,
Oh, thank
how is she
you.
going to spin this? Huh? And you did it. I was like, okay, I'm game. So thank you so much. And we have Danielle's blog listed in her bio below. And thank you so much for tuning into Typewriter Talks, episode 38. We will be back next week or the week after. We'll see, depending on my mood. I love saying that.
I love it, Maureen.
Yeah, right. We used to do it weekly, and I was like, I don't know if I'm in the mood for it every week. And so
you don't need that commitment. We're just thankful for the work that you put out.
Thank you.
Anything from you is a gift.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And if you want to know more about Keep St. Pete Lit, you can go to keepstpetelit.org. We have poetry open mics, online classes. We're going to have 2 book clubs soon with the Fairgrounds Project. We're partnering with them. We have lots of events coming up and partnerships. And thank you for tuning in. And please, everyone, continue to read and write on, no matter what your credentials are, as Danielle says. So see you next time.